even as my predecessor on this stage is hard to supersede, I would say. So I'm going to try and do my best, and thank God that I've got a distinguished panel of a non-resident investor, as I call it, Rahul Chaudhary from CD Corp. Please show your appreciation. Rahul, come on stage. We have Fardan, also Fardan Ali Al Fardan. Fardan is the manager for Equitativa from the Emirates REIT here in Dubai, and he's a resident investor. And last but not least, we have Imad. Barrakad was supposed to be here. He couldn't make it. He's the CEO, but we have certainly the one who can tell you everything about investments in Morocco. And welcome on stage, Salim Mikram. I have to get used to, let me sit here on the side and then you guys can sit next to me. I have to get used to turning around because there's all the audiences there and you think you're talking to an empty stage here, so it's kind of funny, but we need to realize that we're also on the screens here. Sit down, guys, please. So, we're going to talk today about the outbound investment, basically, from the UAE and from this region, from the MENA region, into other regions. And we have somebody there, sitting there from Salim, who is the one who is trying to attract investment. We have Fardan, who is trying to invest outside, but also inside the Emirates for investments in hospitality sector, and Rahul, who's been doing it for quite a while from Nepal. Perhaps a quick introduction, Rahul. Can you tell us in 30 seconds who you are and what your company does?
Thanks, Dirk. It's a pleasure being here, as always, for any of the bench events. We've been in the hospitality industry for now 2 decades, and we started our hospitality journey with Taj, and some of Ameena partners are also here. We are extremely proud of that partnership, and our journey has really grown since our first investment in Sri Lanka and Maldives at a time when even the Sri Lankans and Maldives were not willing to invest in those markets. And since then, after 2 decades, we are now a company with 94 hotels in 15 different countries and 70 plus locations and 5,000 keys and growing. So that's a little bit about us.
You're a large player. We'll get into the meat in a minute. Fardan, can you please tell us something about Equitativa?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so Equitativa is a REIT manager. It's an independent REIT manager that actually started with Emirates REIT, and which is a successful product that IPO'd. So we are actually doing a hospitality REIT. We were thinking about this since September and October to come up with a hospitality product. And we now have a better understanding of what we want to do. So we want to come up with 2 products, one that's focused on the Middle East, with hospitality, and another that's focused mainly on global hospitality. And both actually work and complement each other. So the Middle Eastern actually is for cash inflows to the region, and that's for the cash outflows.
Yeah, interesting. Salim, Morocco is one of those countries in the north of Africa where you basically have a traditional, but also right now, following geopolitical issues in Turkey and more recent in the Tunisia with the horrible attacks. You've been growing, the country has been growing year on year with enormous numbers. Investment is floating in. Still, the Spanish and the French are coming in last. Almost 50% of your tourism comes from those countries. But China, I saw in one of the papers I was reading, is coming into, the Chinese are coming into Morocco as well. 574% increase. Still a large number on total, but the increased numbers are crazy. Please tell us what your tourism investment board, which you're representing as head of business development, what are you focusing on? What is the focus for Morocco, and how does that work? Can you shine your light?
Okay, thank you, Dirk. First of all, Moroccan Agency for Tourism Development, we're a government company. We're promoting Morocco as an investment destination in the tourism industry and hotels. We've been in AHIC for many years now and attending many other events worldwide. So I'm getting known with some people as the Morocco guy. And we're also doing, I mean, that's for the visible part. What we're doing also is we're doing a lot of work in terms of land mobilization and working with local authorities in Morocco and accompanying investors that get into the country. Our focus right now in Morocco is to actually diversify the tourism product. So far, Morocco has been known as a cultural destination, and Marrakesh has been doing very well in that sense. But we want to have also the other component, which are the seaside tourism and a sort of international destination that will be well known worldwide. And the focus right now is on Rabat and Casablanca. To really put them on the map as the economic hub, a sort of Dubai of the Northwest Africa.
Interesting. Everybody is moving in the same direction. Then again, you know, the tourism numbers, the arrivals in the world are growing very fast. So it's a logical development, I guess. We'll get into the type of investments in a minute, but. Earlier today, in one of the opening interviews that we saw with Stephen had with His Excellency Mohammed Alabar, not His Excellency, His Excellency Mohammed Alabar. I'm going to get used to the titles. Emar is investing in heavily in Morocco. Fardan, how's that with you? Are you looking at Morocco as well?
Yes, actually, we have established a Moroccan REIT that's country specific to Morocco. And it's already a privately held REIT, and we're looking at increasing the AUMs. We do have all other asset classes there, so hospitality is one of the sectors we're looking at, but we're also looking at commercial and residential into that REIT itself.
Yeah, and to stay with you a minute, your criteria for investment, what is the main driver behind your investments? And do you do that only through a REIT, or do you have direct investments as well?
No, we do that through the REIT. So the REIT does the direct investments. Yeah. Our criteria are actually based on the returns. So we're a yield-driven vehicle. Because of the nature of the REIT, we have to actually distribute cash dividends on the shareholders. And the regulatory actually asks us to minimum, I think 80% is the minimum of the income should be distributed. So this is why we are looking at yield plays. And we think this is achievable, especially today. We can see that across all continents, there are a lot of opportunities with high yields.
Yeah, it's your natural continent to invest in. And we stopped turning, I think, maybe sitting here finishing Jonathan, which is pleasant, but at the end of the day, your investment is driven basically towards Europe mostly because those are the areas you know best. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. So we are looking at Europe, and we actually follow our airlines. So basically, we do follow these destinations, and Europe is an important actually market for us. But we also do look at other markets. It's not we're not really just focusing on Europe. But yes, this is where we are actually at the moment.
Okay, Rahul, your characterization as a company in terms of investment is different. What is different in your strategy than Fardan's strategy?
Well, Dirk, like I said, that by virtue of our entry in the hospitality space, we entered a region that had just come out of, or was in the process of coming out of crisis and turmoil. And at that point in time, assets were not performing too well. So that strategy has really, really worked for us, whereby even now, when you look at our hospitality spread, we have invested. We are investors as well as operators. So we are entering markets which have also recently come out of turmoil or come out of crisis, and some of those markets that I could name is Nepal. I mean, we weren't in the hospitality space being based in Nepal for almost 15 years. And we just recently began our investment in Nepal, and we are already doing 5 to 6 hotels as we speak. Similarly, in East Africa, we recently stepped into East Africa, and we have an operating hotel which is going to become the Zinc as of next month. And we felt that's I mean, they say, right, wherever there is war, there is opportunity. And we stepped into those markets, and that strategy has worked for us. And although we look at, when we look at the landscape or the spread of our hospitality business, we choose different markets based on the opportunities in those markets. And again, an example of India. We feel that there is a huge opportunity in India, but we are focusing on the mid-market space in India.
Yeah.
So our strategy evolves from opportunistic investments and in terms of also following investments in regions which we know,
Yeah.
and regions where we feel that there is a first mover advantage, where we don't have to compete with the bigger boys, you know?
Yeah. So if I mean, you mentioned the word mid-market in India, and I'm going to switch to Salim again. Recently, Fairmont opened up in Marrakesh with a beautiful, very much upper upscale hotel. Is that the trend also in Morocco, that the first investment that's coming in again has to be 5-star big hotels like the one we're sitting in today? You know, when Ras Al Khaimah came and then came up, and then the Wall of Astoria, it's an iconic building. Is that happening in Morocco, or as your tourists and your incoming traffic is mostly from France and from Spain, mature markets that have a lot of mid-market and young people that are interested, and young people today, we'll get into that later in this discussion, have a much larger interest in a different type of product. How does that work in Morocco?
Well, I think initially Morocco has always been a high-end destination. So in that sense, we focused on high-end hotels, upper upscale, as you said, luxury. That's why you've got a Fairmont open in Marrakesh, but also in other destinations. In Rabat, you have one which is under construction.
Also Fairmont.
Yeah, Fairmont, that's right. And some others as well. I mean, there's a Ritz-Carlton as well. So upper upscale and luxury hotels. Now, depending on the destination, there is certainly a great potential for I would not say mid-scale, but upper upscale hotels, 4-star hotels. Rabat and Casablanca are known as being business destinations rather than purely tourists. So there's a lot of potential in here, and there are a lot of opportunities as well. Today, there is a partnership that's been initiated by the government of Morocco with sovereign funds from the GCC to initiate a WESAL, what we call WESAL fund, and which has been involved in very large and mega project in Morocco, in these two cities, in Rabat and in Casablanca. And for those who knows the Moroccan capital and went there like 20 years ago and go again here, and now they will notice that it's been completely changed, and it's a great metamorphosis.
Well, obviously with Casablanca, everybody here in the room will still, even if you're younger than that, will remember the movie Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, I think it was.
Ingrid Bergman, yeah, that's
There was
right.
iconic movies, the biggest advertisement you can actually have for a city. Does that help you, that kind of advertisement? Are you still exploring that?
I think so far, probably the authorities have not realized how strong is that brand.
Rahul, does that play a role with you? If you see these kind of things, you see an opportunity there?
Well, I mean, like the movie Casablanca, our movies are more focused with the Bollywood, to the Indian cinemascape, and we've had a few movies that were actually shot in Nepal as well, which definitely helped the Nepalese market, but those were shot a long time back. So,
I hope there's any marketeers in the room about here. This is a great way of promoting your cities and attracting investment, I guess. Are you sensitive to that, Fardan?
Yes, actually, we didn't have this industry in this part of the world for a long time. So basically, in the last 10, 15 years, we started seeing our cities coming up in movies, and it was actually a good advertisement campaign for the cities.
I think so. Rahul, you mentioned your zinc brand, basically. I'd like to switch to that for a minute. what we see in the world happening today, and also in hotel trends, certainly in Europe, and you see it with Emirates as well, with their brands. Rove is one of them. Accor has Mama Shelter. 25 Hours, also Accor in this case, and you have the Moxies and the Alofts of this world. Are those hotels that you would put your money in, Rahul?
Well, see, some of the brands that we already have, we have 6 brands under our umbrella, and some of these brands are in the same segments as these hotels. And now our strategy is to obviously invest and promote our brands in the different regions that we are. That's why the markets that we know well in India and Nepal, as I would say, since that's our backyard, we are investing in hotels within the, I would say, the boutique segment, mid-market segment, whereby it's attracting your youth, and it has a lot of connotation to it has a lot of relationship with regards to the digital aspects of the hotel itself. So yes, I mean, in terms of investing in those brands, we are at the moment focusing on investing in our own.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be in the same space and same segment as those hotels.
Yeah, and to dig a little further on that, you have basically CDL of CD Corp, your company, is not only investing in hotels. I mean, you're a huge producer in the world of noodles, but also other products. Do you use your other brands or the other, how do you say, products that you produce and that you own? Do you use that to the benefit of your investment strategy?
Well, like I said, that we as investors like to step into markets that we know well, and through our other businesses, I mean, we've got about 15, 16 different business verticals, and we are spread across 50 different countries. So if we are, and like you mentioned, noodles is one of our biggest businesses in our portfolio. And if we have an establishment of our FMCG business in a certain market, of course, we tend to learn about the market, we tend to learn about the trends in that market, and it makes it easier for us to step into those markets. And in terms of complementary effects, what by virtue of our investments in these sectors, we try to, for example, if you're going to make a hotel in India, we try to make sure that the hotel carries all our products of our FMCG in those hotels. So,
yeah, of course. So
there's always a benefit of having other products and making sure that they all work hand in hand.
So you can pay sharp yields. Fardan, Equitativa is correct me if I'm wrong, a cousin of Emirates.
No, it's actually the manager of Emirates REIT.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's the Emirates REIT. So there is the Emirates airline. There is
no, it's not.
Nothing to do with it?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to explain that, because I was going to ask you, are you looking at the destinations where Emirates has a presence as a means of strategy?
Yes, we do that. This is part of the way we look at our investments and where to invest, is we, as I said, follow the airlines and see where do they actually open new destinations and everything. This is where we open our eyes and start looking at new cities.
In that same line, do you use all the knowledge that you would have in the group of companies? Do you use that knowledge and leverage that knowledge when you make your investment decisions, or are you strictly looking for yield and buy safely?
No, we do leverage that. So basically, sometimes, as I said, it's a yield play for us, but sometimes we do find assets that are not really managed to its potential. Yeah. So we think we can actively manage it and actually turn it around. We do that. We do those kinds of investment too. But then this is only in assets that where we think we can add value to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how is the Moroccan focus going back to Morocco? Because if you look at the developing tourism, investment heavily is going towards Morocco. You mentioned it earlier, everybody knows Marrakesh. It's a lot of high end, but you also said we're focusing more on the beach fronts. In what sense are you actively attracting, and what type of investors are you attracting into Morocco to develop that? And is it only investment, or is it also smart money that you're looking at development companies that can also invest?
Yeah, as far as Seaside tourism is concerned, we have a a priority for the southern part of Morocco around the region of Agadir. Agadir has been a prominent destination in the past, but has known the competition of other destinations. And we believe that to position Morocco as a worldwide destination, we need to have this sort of, diversified product, so cultural and urban, as I said, with Rabat and Casablanca, but also a seaside destination, and Agadir is the spot. And we're looking to attract investors and developers in that area. There have been contracts have been signed also with tour operators recently, and there are really many opportunities at the moment in the region. And the people who have probably followed the resort of Taghazout, for instance, and Taghazout Bay, just a few years ago, we were actively promoting this destination, but today it's done. That's it. There are no longer other parcels. That means there is an interest for that resort. And now our focus is shifting to Mogador as well. It's a resort that is close to Essaouira, and where we believe there's a strong potential. For developing seaside tourists in Morocco and our countries in the MENA region more generally requires that we need to focus on niche tourism, not to focus on mass tourism, because there are some cultural gaps between our tourist flow. So as you mentioned, most of our tourists are coming from Europe. So we need to take that into consideration and really focus on the niche. Like why would a European come to Morocco instead of going to Spain or to France or to Croatia or to etc. So concepts such as medical and senior tourism is something we need to focus on. Golf as well. But also as you can see on the map, we're on the Atlantic, and things like extreme sports such as surf and kite surf is something that we want to promote. And I think that's the point there. And I think
so there you go. So basically, you're acknowledging the fact that the experience economy that we're living in today does play a role, but you're still focusing on the elite.
Yes.
Because you're high end.
Yes.
But the experience economy are young people, aren't they?
Yes. It's more, it can be young people as well, but that has to remain a niche market. And I think this problematic will be shared in all the countries in the region. Saudi Arabia has its vision 2030, I think, developing seaside tourism. I think we have an experience in Morocco of developing seaside tourism. Some of it has worked very well, some other has not worked very well, and we need to make sure that we think about what is our source market before we develop a hotel. Make sure that it's filled in.
So, Fardan, let's move the territory a little bit more south from Morocco and go into Africa. Traditionally, there's a lot of Middle Eastern money has gone into Africa, into development and hotels and tourism. Does that also go for you? You invest in Africa?
Yes, actually. So we are actually trying to look for partners in Africa. As you know, there are good markets in Africa to look at, but we need some local knowledge on the ground. So we're looking with people to actually partner with to come up with a specific kind of product for Africa.
You find that difficult to find the right partners there?
Not really, but then we have to find the right partners for us. So it's a bit time-consuming for us to choose the partners. We sat with a couple of people that we think we can partner with, but it's just taking its course. So
how does that with you, Rahul? Are you present in Africa already?
Yes, like I mentioned that we opened our Kigali hotel some time back, but now it's going to open as the Zinc as of next month. And we already have a strategy. Actually, even before we stepped into Kigali, we had agreed on we had crafted out a 5-country strategy in East Africa itself, comprising of Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, as well as Tanzania. So we work typically on a hub and spoke model. I think I mentioned that before, whereby we first create one asset and get it operational. And learning from our experience of development in that market as well as in the region, we decide to go into other markets within that region. So I mean, that's the strategy we are adopting.
So are you working there with partners also? Or?
Absolutely. We have local partners, but it's always important whenever we step into a new territory to make sure that you have the right partners and identify them suitably and whether to work with them in one asset or multiple different assets. But you learn that over time. And I can say that we've been there for 3-4 years during the cycle of the development. And if you want to enter newer markets, I think we can do that ourselves. I think that's how our development process works all over the world.
Okay. So I've got 2 last questions and then one question that I will ask you to use your imagination on. It's about spending money and where to spend money. Interest rates, should they be rising? And it looks like there will come a point, not too soon, you see a little bit of movement already. Should interest rates start rising, would that affect your investment strategy largely or not? Fardan?
Honestly, actually, looking at Europe specifically, to answer your question regarding that, I don't really think so. IBOR is negative 0.3 or 0.4 now, so I think with the interest rates going a bit up, it might change a bit, but it's not something that's really a game changer for us.
Does it matter for you?
Absolutely. I mean, the markets that we are mostly in, you're talking about Nepal, where your interest rates are upwards of 12%. And in India as well, it's about around 10%. So when you look at your yields or your returns in these markets, it's obviously much more difficult. That's why it's very important to make sure that your entry into these markets is sustainable. That's why we are, and I mentioned this before, that our strategy for India, whereby we are focusing on the mid-market segment, whereby we are more focusing on distressed assets as well as brownfield assets, and we've created a fund as well, just purely for acquisition of these asset classes, so that you can enter at a low price and you can turn around those assets and make sure your returns are suitable, keeping in mind the interests that are prevailing in the markets we are present.
Okay. Perhaps I've got one more last question, but perhaps this is the moment to ask the audience if there are any questions for the panel. Please raise your hand and a microphone will be with you shortly. No questions? Last question from my side. I'm going to ask you 1, 2, 3. So if you would have 500 million of your best friend who would ask you to invest it, where would you invest it in? Imad, Fardan.
So actually at the moment, because we're looking at the hospitality REIT, we think that portfolios in Europe generally is a good investment, where you buy a portfolio and then reposition it and then look to keep the assets or to sell them. So it's like a PE kind of play, but we think that there is the best place to put your money in a hospitality REIT are in portfolios in Europe.
Focus on Europe.
And also the United States and North America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Salim, where would you put your money of your best friend?
Yeah, no, as a Moroccan government official, I think obviously Morocco would be my choice. No, I think there are definitely some great opportunities in Casablanca and Rabat at the moment. We've seen the change over the last few years. It's really rebranding, and I think hotel-wise is going to be tremendous years to come. Yeah.
Okay, Rahul, last one for you.
Well, I'll tell them to invest it in me. Why? Because, as I mentioned, that our strategy now is to focus on larger acquisitions. And we, as a part of our group, we've now carved out a strategy for creating a fund for India, which is going to focus on the distressed asset space. We've created a fund for Europe, and which is also going, because we feel there are assets there, you can get it at a great value. And a third fund we are creating for Middle East and Africa, because we know that there is a huge opportunity for entering these markets, and there's still space in the foreign 5-star space. And we know that's where the money is. And I think it's been tried and tested through our investments there, and I don't think you can go wrong.
So your money is split 3 ways, basically.
Absolutely.
There you go.
So you spread your risk all across,
Thank you very much. for your attention. Thank you very much, my panel. Please give a big hand to the panel.
Thank you.